Hi, I'm Raylyn Worcester, and this is Spreading the Word. I'm going to read to you part 2 of Without Faith. So we'll just pick up where we left off. Present day. The door to the cattle car jerked open without warning, knocking those who'd been leaning against it into each other, one young man nearly falling out the door. The occupants shielded their eyes against the sudden bright light. They had become accustomed to the dimness inside the train. "Out!" the militia captain hollered. "One at a time, but be quick about it." Cantaney scrambled to stand, then moved toward the door. They did not want to incur the wrath of the militia. As the first of them disembarked, they were met by 2 militia officers. One handed them a wedge of cheese, a bottle of water, and a piece of paper. The other wrote a number on their foreheads with a black Sharpie. "Follow them," they were told, as the militia pointed to the line of others who'd been emptied from the cars ahead of them. Alongside the line of Cantaneys, spaced 3 or 4 persons apart, were militia, all armed with machine guns. No one would be going anywhere but inside the razor-wired fence directly ahead. Most of the train's occupants opened their water the moment they received it. They hadn't had anything to drink in nearly 2 days. A few made the mistake of guzzling the water or draining the bottle all at once, and immediately threw it up. One woman was cuffed across the chin by a militia officer whose boots were splashed by her vomit. It was a stern reminder to the others to drink their water carefully, just as well as they didn't know how long it might have to last. "Excuse me," an obese woman called to the militia officer closest to her. "Sir, have you anything else? I'm lactose intolerant." "Well," he replied, looking her up and down, "we wouldn't want to make you sick, would we?" The woman smiled, shaking her head no. He knocked the cheese out of her hand and into the dirt at her feet. "Then don't eat it." As he walked on, the woman picked up the cheese, wiped it off on her dirty t-shirt, and took a bite. She was hungry after all. As they approached the door, Sonia said to Jack, "Unless they separate us, I'd very much like it if you would stay with me." "Thank you," Jack smiled. "I'd like that too." She held his hand and steadied him as he stepped down off the train. As they followed the line of others, they nibbled their cheese and sipped their water. Sonia reached up to brush aside the hair that had fallen over one eye and whispered to Jack, "What's my number?" 99716. "Oh my, do you think there are really that many people here?" "Shut up! Speak when spoken to," a militia guard yelled. The rest of the long trek to the gate was made in silence, the only sounds that of chewing, plastic bottles crinkling, and the crunch of gravel beneath thousands of feet. Long before they reached the gate, those who were smart studied the paper that had been handed to them. On one side was a map, on the other what appeared to be a set of rules. Sonia thought it prudent to read the rules first. She didn't want to unknowingly anger any of the militia. She turned the map over and began to read. Read them, know them. Number 1, protect your number. Any number smudged or illegible will result in replacement by a permanent tattoo. Number 2, Facility workers wear gray shirts and black pants. Speak to them only when they address you first. You will be told anything you need to know. Militia are not to be spoken to. Number 3. Persons will be processed in the order they arrived. Until it is your turn, you may wander the facility. Buildings marked with a red X on the map are off limits. Hours of operation are strictly observed. Number 4. You may converse with other containees once inside the gates. This is a privilege, which may be revoked if necessary. Religious talk, praying, and singing are strictly prohibited and punishable by militia. Number 5. You will not receive clothes or shoes while you are here. Take care of yours. Number 6. Everyone wakes when the processing day starts. No one sleeps until it is over. You will be fed once a day. There will be no food on Sundays. You will receive sanitary items in place of food on Sundays. Sonia turned the paper over to look at the map. There was a fence drawn around the entire perimeter of the paper. Just inside the only gate was a large courtyard area. Low cement benches for sitting lined the inside of the fence, in the front and on both sides. The back 2/3 of the property housed 9 buildings, with 2 rows of 4 parallel buildings and 1 huge building that sat perpendicular behind the last row of 4. This building was labeled Containee Billeting. The first row of 4 from left to right were labeled Commodities, Processing A, Processing B, Infirmary. The second row of 4 from left to right were labeled Staff Billeting, Admin, Mess, Security. These 4 had red X's on them. Behind the Containee Billeting building, there was a gate that led to another large fenced area. This area was labeled Latrine Pits. Sonia folded the paper and, not having a pocket in her skirt, stuffed it in her bra. After what had to be an hour at least, Sonia and Jack made it to the gate. There were trash cans outside the fence for the empty water bottles. As she tossed her bottle in, she saw one of the maps in the can as well. The militia had an angry 20-something young man pulled over to the right outside the gate. "You dropped your map," the guard was saying. "It's right where it belongs," the man replied, getting in the guard's face. "Don't challenge him," Sonia was thinking. "He's got a gun." The guard gave the man a little shove and said, "Sure hope you've got it memorized then, for your sake. Go on through." The man strutted through the gate as if he'd won that battle. He just dodged a bullet, Sonia thought. Literally. Once inside the gate, Jack squeezed between 2 people to sit on the bench lining the fence. He offered the spot to Sonia, but Jack was smaller and fit better, so she declined. She sat on the ground at his feet. "A little bit of dirt isn't the worst thing I've gotten on this skirt lately," she thought. Jack started to ask her about some of the labeled buildings on the map when a PA announcement preceded by a loud doorbell sound. Ding! Dong! Came over the air. All talking ceased. "This is the Oklahoma FEMA processing plant," a voice that sounded like Siri or maybe Alexa said. The announcement was loud and clear and carried to all corners of the 15-acre facility. "This is not a detention center. All persons will be processed and transferred to other facilities. This will take much time. The processing day begins at 7 a.m. and ends at 9 p.m. There will be 8 announcements per day. Announcement 4 of 8. Ding! Dong! All around them, people were talking about the announcement they'd just heard. Sonia was quiet. She was thinking. She was doing math. She pulled Jack close and said in his ear, "We can tell time by the announcements. If the day starts at 7, the first announcement has to be a wake-up call, so maybe 6 or 6:30. 8 in a day means roughly every 2 hours. If that was announcement 4 of 8, it must be between noon and 1 p.m. or thereabouts." "Lunchtime," Jack said, breaking into a grin. Sonia shook her head. "I doubt it." "Did you read the rules? 1 meal a day. I'm afraid our cheese and water was probably it." "Well, if we've got about 2 hours until the next announcement and we're not gonna eat, we might as well check this place out," he replied. "I agree." She took his hand and started walking through the crowd toward the buildings. Between the crowd and the older man's arthritic gait, it was a slow walk, but Sonia had the feeling that the only thing in abundance here would be time. "This place reminds me of the Ohio Shoe," Jack said, looking around. "Have you ever been there?" "No." "How can a place remind you of a shoe?" Sonia asked, sounding as confused as she felt. Jack chuckled. "It's a football stadium in Columbus, Ohio. It's called the Shoe because it's shaped like a horseshoe. I saw the Ohio State Buckeyes play Michigan there in 2016. There were 110,000 people at that game. I guess that's what made me think of it. If the first person off a train had a number 1 on their forehead, and ours is over 99,000, it's probably about the same number of people at that game." "Wow, Jack, I'm impressed by your powers of deduction." Jack beamed. While Jack was counting people, Sonia was looking at faces. There were 8 people in her church group put on different cars of the same train. They had to be here somewhere. She saw a woman from the back who might be Doreen Benson. Why couldn't she remember what Doreen had been wearing? She reached out and tapped the woman on the shoulder. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said as the woman turned around. "I thought you were someone else." "No problem, dear," the woman replied. "Oh my, 99716? Are there really that many people here? Oh my Jesus, oh dear." Sonia glanced at the woman's forehead. 842. "I have so many questions for you," Sonia told the woman. "Would you sit and talk with me for a bit?" "I would welcome the distraction," the woman replied. "My name is Anna." Sonia and Anna saw some empty space on the bench that ran along the inside of the right-hand fence and headed in that direction. Jack wanted to check out the buildings, so he said he would meet them back at the benches after the next announcement. The first building Jack saw was labeled Infirmary. There were no signs on the door. He tried the knob. It was open, so he walked in and looked around. There was no waiting room, no chairs, just a long counter with a glass partition above it and a mouse hole opening to talk through. It was pin drop quiet in there. No piped-in waiting music, no TV, no magazines. It more resembles a bank, Jack thought. One woman in a gray shirt, about 50 he'd guess, with slightly graying hair twisted up in a knot on top of her head, sat behind the counter. She looked up from whatever she was doing and said, "Help you?" The sudden sound startled him. I'm new here, just looking around. That's okay, right?" Jack stuttered. The woman gave Jack a quick smile, or was it a grimace? He wasn't quite sure. "Okay, here's the drill," she began. "Headaches are normal. Vomiting, diarrhea, and sore throat are normal. Unless they persist more than 3 days, then come see me. If it's sprained or broken or won't quit bleeding, come see me. If you pass out for longer than 10 minutes or hit your head at all, come see me. We don't deal with toothaches, don't dispense aspirin, cough medicine, antacids, or Band-Aids. If you take regular medication, fill out the form on the clipboard to your right, and we will see what we can fill. That may take a few days, so get it turned right back in." She pointed to the double doors behind her. "We have exam rooms and a small hospital through there. Anyone requiring equipment we don't have, needing surgery, or if we can't resolve the issue after 3 days, gets shipped out to a medical facility. This is the only building on the grounds that never closes. Got it?" I think so. Thanks. Can I take a few of these forms?" "One per person. Each person here is responsible only for themselves." "Okay, thanks," Jack replied, lifting a sheet from the clipboard. The woman did that thing with her mouth again, dismissing him. It was definitely a grimace. "My name is Sonia. Can I ask how long you've been here?" The woman looked down at her lap, pulling nervously at the fabric of her skirt. Most of these people were pulled out of church, Sonia realized. That's why most of the women are in dresses. It was an aha moment. "The train started coming 2 weeks ago. I was on the first one. My daughter and granddaughter and my great-grandson are here somewhere. At least I think they are. I haven't seen any children around here. Have you?" Now that you mention it." The woman was still fidgeting with her skirt and was now weeping softly. Sonia's heart broke for her. They must all be feeling this way. She considered for a moment what her own family must be feeling when she didn't return from church on Sunday. "I wonder if I'll ever see them again." She placed her arm along the woman's shoulders and gave her a brief hug. "Let's pray, okay?" They both closed their eyes, no words escaping their lips not even moving. Each prayed within themselves where they couldn't be punished for it. A passerby would think they were napping. This fact-finding mission was going to take a while. Jack left the infirmary and was walking to the next building. They were spaced out farther than it had seemed looking at the map. He hadn't done this much walking in a long time. He was getting tired. He noticed that between the two buildings there were patches of grass that he couldn't see until he approached the buildings. There were more of the cement benches placed upon them. "Oh, good," he thought, turning in to sit a moment. But the benches were all full. This place was crowded. "No matter, I'll pull up a piece of grass." Jack sat on a section of grass and folded his legs. Just for a minute, he thought. The cool grass felt good. Just then, the doorbell sounded. Ding! Dong! Jack looked up as if Siri was speaking to him from the clouds. "This is the Oklahoma FEMA processing plant. This is not a detention center. All persons will be processed and transferred to other facilities. Processing will begin tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. You will be informed where and when to report. You eat once a day. The next food distribution begins tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. More information to follow. Announcement 5 of 8. Ding! Dong! Jack got up off the grass and turned around to go back to Sonia, as he said he would. Passing the infirmary, he poked his head inside again. At the sound of the door, the woman behind the glass looked up. "Help you?" "I need a pen to fill out this form," Jack explained. She motioned him in. "Have to use it here," she said, sliding a pen onto the counter. The first line at the top of the page was for his number. "You are 99715, the woman said, reading his forehead. "Thanks." Then it asked him to list medications he uses and how often he takes them. "How do you spell lisinopril?" Jack asked the woman. There it was, the grimace again. "Just write blood pressure on the line." Jack wrote blood pressure and arthritis once a day and acid reflux as needed. He slid the paper and pen through the mouse hole to the woman. "Good, you'll be notified," she said, then looked down again. Jack left to go find Sonia. He had been dismissed. Washington, D.C. Preston gave a quick rap on the Oval Office door and entered the room briskly. Jackie Naylor slid off the edge of the Resolute desk where she'd been sitting and straightened her skirt. Jackie identified as she, her, or they, them. It didn't matter as long as they didn't call her him. That label was used all through childhood and adolescence. That was long enough. "President Naylor, Vice President Naylor," acknowledged Preston in greeting. "Proceed, Preston," Rust instructed. "The final train has arrived at the processing center, and the containees are getting settled. Processing will begin in the morning." President Naylor nodded. "Very good. Please inform Oklahoma City that the Vice President will be heading this particular project, and they are to report directly to her. She will require reports daily and will handle issues and problems as they arise. Understood?" Preston nodded, jotting a note on the pad he held in his hand. "And President Naylor?" "Yes?" "The switchboard is getting overrun with calls about the whereabouts of the people who've been arrested for the hate crimes. People want to know where their family members have been taken and when they can see them. There have been crowds of people at the front gate every morning demanding answers, causing a scene. It's getting out of hand." "I see." The president sighed. "Okay, schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. I will set the people's minds at ease." "Done," Preston responded as he turned to leave. "I like that boy," Russ said to Jackie when they were alone again. "No nonsense, efficient, respectful." "Better than me?" Jackie pouted. Rust swatted their husband's bottom playfully. "Only in public." Jackie stood and looked at her watch. "I've got a committee meeting in 10 minutes. I better get going. Say, why did you make all the containees wait to be processed until they all arrived? They could have had a fourth of them done by now." Rust smiled a nasty little grin. "Because I could. To make them sweat. Those poor bastards have no idea what they are in for." "You're so bad," Jackie swatted at her husband. "Toodles," she exclaimed and walked out the door. Her thoughts were on the upcoming meeting. The containees and their problems, not worth the space they would take up in her mind. Across the nation. No, Richard, you don't understand, a frustrated Monica moaned. I've called Mom 5 times over the last 2 days, and her phone goes straight to voicemail. Something is wrong. I know it is. She probably forgot to charge it. You know Sonia. She cares more about people than technology. Richard turned down the volume of the news program he'd been watching. More church arrests, he told his wife. Hey, your mom's church didn't try to break in and have service, did they? No, she said they were just going to do their own thing, whatever that means. I guess you're right. I'm panicking over nothing. Richard shut off the news and walked over to his wife, taking her hand. If you still can't reach her in a couple of days, we'll make the drive over. It's just a couple of hours away. Okay, Monica replied, sounding almost convinced. She just couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She wasn't the only one. That's odd, Mrs. Jansen thought. The Turner's car has been gone since Sunday. She rapped on the door. No answer. She tried to look through the gap in the blinds covering the window. No movement inside, not that she could tell. She hurried to her apartment and picked her phone up off the counter. 911? I think my neighbors are missing. Hey, you there on the bike, can you come over here? I need to ask you something. The 10-year-old boy rode over cautiously. Yeah, what you want? Have you seen the people who live in that house lately? The boy eyed the man asking the question and decided that he looked harmless enough. The Bensons? Oh man, didn't you hear? The militia hauled about 8 of them out of there last Sunday. They were having secret church in the basement. I heard them singing. As he feared. Okay, thanks, the man replied. The boy rode off, throwing a parting comment over his shoulder. Serves them right, the haters. Sam dreaded going home to tell his wife what he had learned. Tim Parsons was Catherine's brother. His wife Janice taught the children at Mustard Seed Faith, while Tim acted as one of the pastors. He and Janice had been attending service at the Bensons since their church closed. They'd asked Catherine to watch the children each week while they were there. They felt it wasn't safe for the kids to go. How right they were. Catherine hadn't started to worry until it was getting dark out, and Tim and Janice still hadn't come to pick up the kids. Sam had been looking for them since, starting at their house, talking to neighbors, swinging by the church, and ending up here. Catherine jumped up from the table as Sam finished his tale and began rummaging through a bookshelf. It's here somewhere. Oh, here we go. I've got a church directory. I'm going to call and find out who else had been at the Bensons, gather up anyone else that wants to go, and I'm heading to the militia office. Sam knew there was no stopping her. I'll stay with the kids, he offered. All over the country, similar scenarios were playing out as thousands of worshipers, holders of Bibles, and those guilty of being known to be Christian were rounded up and spirited away. In every city, loved ones inquiring at militia offices were told, they aren't jailed here. No, I don't know where they've been taken. It's above my pay grade. Thousands of Christians had simply disappeared. Oklahoma City. Sonia and Anna listened to the announcement. Sonia was amazed at how quiet the compound got whenever the doorbell sounded. She understood, though. Everyone realized that Siri was their lifeline. Jack would be back soon, and Anna would want to get back to whatever she had planned to do that day. So Sonia tried to make good use of the time left with her by gathering some more information. "What have you been doing since you've been here?" she asked the older woman. "Waiting. They wouldn't start the processing until all the trains had arrived." "For 2 weeks?" Sonia asked incredulously. "How did you fill your days?" "Well, at first I explored the grounds. Then I waited for the trains, and I'd stand by the gate and watch the newcomers come in to see if I knew any of them. I didn't. Sometimes you have to wait a long time to get your food, so that helped the time go by. And of course, every day I'm looking through the crowds to find my Paula, her daughter Sissy, and her little Frankie." "Can you tell me about mealtime, bedtime, and shower scheduling?" Sonia felt these were need-to-know subjects. Everything else would be figured out. Anna nodded. "The commodities office opens at 7. Any time throughout the day you can go get your meal, if that's what you'd call it," she scoffed. "You go in, and when you get to the worker, they hand you your food and a bottle of water and punch your number into the computer to make sure you only get your 1 serving a day. That includes water, so you gotta make it last. It's smart to save a few bites each day for Sunday. No food on Sunday." "Why?" Sonia asked. "Isn't it obvious? It's the Lord's Day. They said they thought we would want to fast." Sonia shook her head, and Anna continued. "At the last announcement, we all have 1 hour to make it to the Contaney Billeting Building. There are sleeping platforms set up bunk bed style from floor to just below the ceiling. There are sleeping bags on the platforms. First come, first served. No blankets, no pillows." "And showers?" Sonia asked. "Honey, there are no showers. On Sunday, in place of food, you get an extra bottle of water, a sliver of soap, and a moist towelette from a barbecue place in the city. You also get a travel-sized bottle of mouthwash, and on your very first visit, a plastic comb. No shampoo, no deodorant, no toothpaste, no toothbrushes. That's it. Hey, isn't that your friend Jeff or—" "Jack," Sonia supplied, waving him over. Anna stood to go. Sonia thanked her for the info and gave her a hug. Jack arrived just as Anna was leaving. Eager to hear about the buildings and share what she'd learned from Anna, Sonia motioned to Jack to take the seat Anna had just vacated. "I'd rather walk and talk," he said. "Okay." "The next place we need to check out is the latrine pits," he explained. "Ah, now I understand." They headed in the direction indicated on the map in what could only be described as the elderly man version of running. She didn't know what she expected latrine pits to look like, but it wasn't this. The fenced-off area behind the Contaney Billeting Building contained nothing but deep trenches running the length of the Billeting Building. Every 15 feet or so, there was a post with a long peg screwed into it, which held sheets of some kind of paper, obviously not toilet paper. There were no toilets, no doors, no sinks, and no privacy. Sonia turned her back so Jack could pee in private, if you could call sharing an outdoor ditch with hundreds of men and women squatting over the edge private. Sonia was embarrassed for those who had to use the facilities in front of everyone else, and she knew she would be humiliated when she could hold it no longer. One benefit to very little food and water, she thought. always one to try to find the silver lining. Jack quickly finished and zipped up, and the two left the area as quickly as possible. And she had thought the stench on the train was bad. Sonia and Jack continued their exploration of the grounds. They started with the containing billeting building as it was closest to the latrine pits. The door was locked. The sign on the door read, "Closed between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Wake up at 6:30 a.m., lights out at 10:30 p.m. Next was the back row of 4 parallel buildings. The first one they came to was labeled security. The sign on the door read, "Authorized personnel only." There appeared to be a steady stream of militia coming out and going in that door. As it opened, Sonia was able to see inside a bit. There seemed to be cubicles or offices of some kind, and she saw some of the uniformed personnel holding cans of soda or drinking coffee. Wonder where they got that. Her mouth watered, and suddenly she felt very thirsty. Jack mentioned that he was uncomfortable loitering in front of the security office. Sonia agreed. It was time to move on. It turned out that there were grassy areas with cement benches between each of the 4 parallel buildings in each of the 2 rows. They sat on one of the benches for a few minutes before continuing on. Ding! Dong! This is the Oklahoma FEMA processing plant. This is not a detention center. All persons will be processed and transferred to other facilities. Prescriptions are ready for the following numbers: 14, 508, 1100, 2654, 7029, 30611, and 84555. You have until the next announcement to pick them up. Repeat. Prescriptions are ready for the following numbers: 14, 508, 1100, 2654, 7029, 30611, and 84555. Announcement 6 of 8. Ding! Dong! 4:30, Jack announced. Sonia nodded. He asked if she took any medication. Just over-the-counter allergy meds when my hay fever gets too bad, she answered. I don't think you can get that here, Jack said. Me either, but there's not a lot of plants around, just a little bit of grass. I probably won't need it. Ever the optimist, even here, even now. They moved along to the next building, entitled Mess. The sign on the door read, Staff Only. Breakfast 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. Lunch 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Dinner 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. No food or drink to leave this building. The next building down the row was entitled Admin. The sign on the door read, Authorized personnel only. This door to remain locked at all times. All of the buildings on these grounds have tiny windows way up high near the roof, Sonia noticed. They want the light and fresh air, but don't want us to see what they are doing in there, she thought. The last building in this row was labeled Staff Billeting. The sign on the door said, Staff Only. Beds are to be stripped and clean sheets collected from commodities every Sunday. The building directly in front of the staff billeting building was labeled Commodities. It was the first building since the containees billeting building that was not off limits to them. Indeed, the door was unlocked. They walked inside to look around. It was crowded inside, like everywhere else on these grounds, but less, Sonia suspected, than it would be earlier in the day. The people in this room had waited all day until whatever time it was now, 5:30, to get their food for the day. Smart, Sonia thought, if you can do it. She didn't know if she could. Her stomach was gnawing a hole in her backbone. The single wedge of cheese eaten nearly 5 hours ago was a distant memory, and she was so thirsty. She knew Jack had to be too. Who was she kidding? She would probably be waiting at the commodities door as soon as it opened, like everyone else. No matter. A few more hours and they could sleep and wake to eat and drink again. Jack tugged her sleeve and told her to follow him. They went along the left edge of the wall toward the front where they could view the distribution. There was a long stainless steel table nearly the width of the building with probably 30 people in gray shirts and black pants standing behind it. There was a line of containees in front of each person. As the containee walked up to the staff, the man or woman in gray typed their number into a computer. Out of a box on the table was pulled a cellophane-wrapped wedge of cheese, and out of another a bottle of water. These were handed to a containee who weeded his way through the crowd toward the door, and the next in line took his place. A man halfway down the table made a commotion that drew their attention. "Is this it? I'm 6'4", 235 pounds. I can't live on this. It's mouse food." Staff waiting on him pushed a button on the computer, and a red light started flashing on the wall behind the table. A militia officer came out from the double doors behind the table to speak to the man. "This is your only warning. Take your food without complaint or don't eat it. If there's another problem, your number will be noted in the computer and you will be denied food for 3 days for your actions. Defiance will not be tolerated." The militia officer went back through the double doors. The man who had just been lectured silently fumed, but grabbed his cheese and water and turned to leave. At another station, the staff pushed another button on her computer and a green light flashed behind her. Another staff member came out from the double doors with a dolly carrying 2 large boxes. He put them on the table and took the ones the staff at that station had just emptied. Convinced they'd seen enough to know how this place worked, Sonia and Jack worked their way through the crowd to the door. Jack said, "I'd like to get here early tomorrow." Sonia nodded her agreement. "I wonder if it's cheese every day," he said. "We'll find out tomorrow. If it is, we won't need to use the latrine pits as often." Jack grinned. Always something to be thankful for, he thought. The next 2 buildings were labeled Processing A and Processing B. These 2 buildings were locked. Sonia suspected they would be open and accessible tomorrow, as the processing would begin in the morning. The last building in the row was the infirmary. Jack had already been there and told Sonia all about it, so they skipped it now. Jack told Sonia that he was really tired. They'd done a lot of walking, and it had been an emotionally fraught day. She was wiped out too. They decided to find a patch of grass between the buildings to sit on for a while. As Sonia settled cross-legged onto the cool grass, and Jack sat beside her, she encouraged him to lay his head in her lap. He closed his eyes for a moment and was out. Sonia decided to let him sleep until the next announcement. She sat quietly and talked to God about the events of the day. After a bit, she closed her eyes and listened as he talked back to her, encouraging and bringing peace to her soul. Ding, dong, Jack woke up with a start, looking around with wide eyes, trying to get his bearings. Sonia reached for his hand, and it all came back to him. This is the Oklahoma FEMA processing plant. This is not a detention center. All persons will be processed and transferred to other facilities. Personal items such as medication, sanitary items, or food may be kept in a plastic sack available in the commodities building and tied to a belt loop or your wrist. Do not set these down. You are responsible for your belongings at all times. Announcement 7 of 8. Ding dong. Should we go get one? Jack asked. Do you have any belongings right now? Well, no. Let's get one tomorrow at breakfast, Sonia suggested. Jack nodded. What should we do now? Jack asked again. Are you still tired? Exhausted. Let's stay here and rest some more. Jack needed no more encouragement. He settled into Sonia's lap again, and this time they both napped. Unbeknownst to the dozing pair, directly behind them a covert meeting was taking place in the admin building. 50 gray and black-clad staff sat around a conference table. A militia general with a microphone and PowerPoint presentation stood at its head. Tomorrow is a big day. We start the processing. It's what we've been training for the last 2 weeks, he began. Medical screening will take place in Processing A, while questioning takes place in Processing B. After undergoing both processes, containees will be assigned a threat condition level. TC1 for sick and elderly over 80 years old. TC2 is for children and teens, which were taken directly from the trains and are being held in the security building until their train is ready to leave again. TC3 for non-believers, those caught in the wrong place at the wrong time or dragged along against their wishes. TC4 for fence sitters, those not sure where their loyalties lie, who waffle between ideals, the wishy-washy. TC5 for the fervent, those of strong convictions who will not be swayed at any cost. Place the large red threat condition stickers on the chest of the containee and put them in the holding area to the rear of the processing rooms. Every 15 minutes, a militia officer will come escort these to their assigned trains for relocation based upon their threat condition. Our goal is to process 2,000 to 2,500 persons per day. And now, a matter of security, he continued, shifting gears. He switched on the PowerPoint presentation, and a couple's image filled the screen behind him. Gloria, a slightly built redhead in her early 30s, leaned forward slightly, all her focus on the screen ahead as she prepared to commit to memory everything she was about to see and hear. It has come to our attention that there are many already identified as fervents among the containees. These have been encouraging and inciting others into participating in forbidden activities. Many came in on later trains and will not be processed for some time. Keep your eye out for these and alert the militia of any untoward activity immediately. Containees had started talking the minute they entered the gates of the facility. The hot topic on everyone's lips was the activity that seemed to miraculously and spontaneously happen on the cattle cars, which evidenced that God had not abandoned them. Of course, the militia learned of this. Militia ears heard everything. The man on the screen before you is Mark Turner, The woman is his wife, Laura. The next slide is Tim Parsons and his wife, Janice. This is Singha Wu, Gerald Wiggins, Andy Johnston, Sonia Peterson, Doreen and Harold Benson, Geraldine Smythe, Danny McLaughlin. The list went on for 10 minutes. I don't have to remind you that we answer to the Vice President herself. There are eyes all over this project. Let's do them proud. Dismissed. Ding! Dong! The doorbell rang out loud and clear, waking both Jack and Sonia. It was dark out now, and there were floodlights on here and there throughout the grounds. 8:30 p.m. They'd slept for 2 hours. But somehow Sonia felt they'd not have trouble sleeping at bedtime. This is the Oklahoma FEMA processing plant. This is not a detention center. All persons will be processed and transferred to other facilities. This is the final announcement of the evening. Please make your way to the Cantaney Billeting Building. You have 1 hour to arrive before the doors are locked for the night. Announcement 8 of 8. Ding, dong. Good thing we're close, Jack said. Yeah, let's head over, Sonia agreed. It's first come, first served, and we definitely want a sleeping bag. Do you need the latrine before we go to bed? Jack hesitated. I think I'm good. I haven't had much to drink. Me too. Let's go then. The room was only about half full when they arrived. They would have to make sure they were close every evening. Do you prefer upper or lower? Sonia asked. The stairs are hard on my knees, he answered. Lower it is. They found the two cleanest looking sleeping bags next to each other on the platform on the floor and climbed inside. They weren't sleepy and the lights would be on for at least another hour, but they didn't want to risk losing the bags. As others settled in beside them, they introduced themselves. Sonia continued to scan the crowd, looking for her friends from church. She hadn't seen them all day, and she didn't see them now. But they were here somewhere. They had to be. On the top platform near the ceiling, crammed up against the far wall, Mark struggled to zip up his sleeping bag. It was one of the last ones left as he scrambled through the door minutes before it was locked for the night. The lights were still on, but most of the other containees were already sleeping, some snoring softly. As he shifted to raise the zipper, Mark felt the crumpled piece of paper in his trousers pocket. With the emotional turmoil caused by the day's events clamoring for his attention, he'd forgotten all about it. Dare he take it out and try to read it while the lights were still on? No sooner had that thought entered his mind, and the lights shut off. 10:30. Lying in the dark, Mark pulled the paper wad from his pocket and quietly smoothed it out with his hands against his chest. Then he carefully folded it into eighths and put it back in his pocket. Flatter now, less likely to be detected. Hopefully, he'd find a safe opportunity to read it tomorrow, if he had time. Tomorrow he was going to find his wife, if he had to look at every person here to do it. So that's it for part 2. I hope you've enjoyed the reading of Without Faith. Don't forget to sign on again for part 3 and find out where all the rest of Mustard Seed Faith are and what's going to happen next. If you're enjoying these stories, please like and subscribe and encourage your friends to listen to them as well. Thank you, and God bless.